guys, I'm so happy that everyone was able to join. Like I mentioned, I am a Dropbox channel manager here. I'm sure that you guys have been doing so many webinars, so we want to make it a little bit fun and interactive. It's nice to see people's faces and just make sure that we're, you know, speaking with each other and staying in contact, because it's hard for all of us that we're sequestered to our house. So thank you for joining us today, and we really appreciate the time. One of the things that we have been seeing at Dropbox is, with everyone working remote right now, we have had a huge uptick in people needing Dropbox, and specifically around our business solution, because that is helping manage with security. It's giving the company control over what they can see and making sure that teams are staying in sync. So we have been seeing there has been a 400% increase in people opening up business trials. Unfortunately, we only give a few weeks and it's limited in licensing. So since you came to this happy hour, you are eligible for 60 days, so 2 months, for any and all of your employees to have free Dropbox licenses. There's nothing contractual. It's just for you to use while you are, while we're all going through this. It's helped out a lot of businesses, making sure that everything is up and running. So that's something that we want to offer. Also, Hellosign, we're going to talk a little bit more about what that entails. But any signatures, any part of your business that you need to, typically get a fax in or somebody to print something and sign it, it just gives you the ability to be able to do that remotely without any challenges. So 60 days completely free of Dropbox Business unlimited licenses, and 30 days of Hellosign licenses for any part of your business you might need it. Can you go to the next slide, Beth? As we mentioned earlier in trivia, Dropbox did acquire a e-signature solution. It's very competitive with your DocuSigns and Adobe Signs. There's a lot of reasons why this is one of the fastest growing e-signature tools, and there's no hidden fees or anything like that. We have the best pricing that's in the market. It's completely customizable towards your business. It's an API first approach. And so if there's anything that we need to do to make the workflows better on your end, that's something that can be designed. It can be spun up immediately when you are ready to start a signature tool. There's no implementation really that's even involved. And then we have an awesome support that is dedicated to you guys. The reason why Dropbox acquired them is because Dropbox is known as being a very simplistic tool that everybody can use, and it's got a powerful back end, a lot of stuff you can do with it, but the end user experience is really awesome, and that's why we chose Hellosign, is we really see the same thing in their business, and so now we do offer that as well. Next. So we see that this is kind of a line of business type solution where a lot of times salespeople need the ability to send contracts remotely, any work orders, agreements, things like that can be all easily sent. One of the things that is a differentiator of Hellosign versus a lot of our competitors, which we mentioned in trivia as well, is that we do unlimited envelopes. That's super important. At my last job, we used DocuSign in the sales department, and every quote that I was sending was $6. So it got very, very expensive very, very quickly. And we have unlimited envelopes with that. So a lot of times you're going to see that in sales, HR, if you're onboarding new employees, or if you are offboarding them, if you're doing any background checks, anything like that. We're seeing a lot in HR that this is a needed solution. And then finance, procurement, again, like anything invoice related that can be signed off remotely from the solution. So that's just kind of some areas where we see the use cases within a business. We're going to be showing you in the demo how that works with Dropbox and the integration, if that's something that you're interested in. but it's rapidly growing, and we're seeing the huge use case in just remote work in general. So next slide. I'll pass it off on Alex, but one thing I do want to talk a little bit about where we've been and where we are today. Dropbox has traditionally been known as a consumer tool, and over the years we've seen so many employees bring Dropbox to their business just because it's so easy to use, it's very dependable, it works with any type of device, it works on any operating system. And so we've really transitioned from, you know, being a consumer tool to a business tool at this point. And that's based on the incredible adoption that we have. And we're seeing that even spike in the middle of this pandemic where everybody needs to be dispersed. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can use Dropbox remotely and how it can support your business. Again, we are giving out free licenses for a while, so we'll talk about how your employees can stay engaged and different things that we can do that will help share that out. Alex, do you want to go ahead and share your screen?
Yeah, let me get shared out here. All right, is that showing up for everyone? Let me hide this. Can you see my screen now?
We can see a mountain on the ocean.
Perfect.
I'm looking at a mountain in the water.
Excellent. Yeah, so let me quickly introduce myself and then we'll kick it off. I think I've got about 15 or 20 minutes, so I'm relying on Christy to keep me straight on time. So my name's Alex Rucker. I'm the solutions architect here at Dropbox for the channel sales team. I've been with Dropbox for about a year, and I come from a background fully in IT. For the last 20 years, I've been in IT and decided to come to Dropbox just simply because I had used it for my entire career. And it was just a great product that I loved supporting, I loved using, so it just made sense to work with the team. For today, since we only have a little bit amount of time, I'm going to do a quick walk through the new Dropbox experience and then show you how some of the ways we've been seeing partners and customers using Dropbox while we're in this weird time of everyone kind of working remotely. We'll also transition and show a little bit on the Hellosign side on how that integrates, and also how we integrate with additional tools like Slack, Zoom, O365, G Suite. But I believe we have a Q&A session at the end, so if you do have questions as I go through it, feel free to add them to the chat, and I'll be sure that we get all the questions answered before we wrap up today. So to Christy's point, that's kind of where Dropbox Business came. People were using Dropbox since 2007 when we first released. I started using back in 2009, and it worked so well because I was working and going to school at the same time that I just put all my content in there for work and school, and eventually just brought it into the workplace. The problem with that from the IT side was you don't have a lot of insight into personal Dropbox accounts. So Business was designed to extend the visibility, reporting, and control over the environment just to safeguard it, allow people to continue using Dropbox, while also making sure that you're protecting the corporate data on the backside. So most people know Dropbox like this, right? You install the application on your desktop, you access it on your mobile device, it's in your file system, right? So your files are here, your content's here, you sync it, you share it to your friends, your family, share it to other Dropbox users. Great. So this is a good experience, and the file sync and share solution has always been kind of the core of what Dropbox does best. What we wanted to do with the business side is take a lot of the effort that we had previously done on the web, the collaboration efforts, communication, keeping people in touch, making sure people are in the same file versions. First, going back and forth between the desktop app and the web interface, we thought, why don't we just bring all that to the desktop and let people work out of a single pane of glass? So instead of working out of the actual, I'm on a Mac system here, but if you're working in Finder or Windows Explorer or even on Linux, instead of looking at the UI in the actual file system, we built out this new application. So again, the new application is designed to bring the content that you're currently working on, both personal and as a team, into a single unified view, and then layer all of your collaboration efforts, your communication efforts, your third-party integrations and connectivities into one single location. So when you start your day in Dropbox, you come up here, you can see all the notifications for the most recent content that's been touched or commented on. You can see all the information about your content as well as your team's content. So knowing people that are on the same teams and they have access to similar content will surface things like, hey, if Christy's working on a happy hour for next week and she builds a PowerPoint, that might surface to me if I have access to that content. But we want to make it really easy for you to understand what's important to you, and we're using machine learning on the back end to surface what your rest of your team is working on as well. So let's kind of break down this interface a bit. So again, what we're doing is we're taking the folder structure of the content that's actually syncing down to your desktop, and we're surfacing that into the Dropbox application. So these are the same folders in your Dropbox folder that you're currently used to using in Finder and Windows Explorer. So a couple of things here just to level set. Dropbox does offer 180 days of file version history. So any content that you do put in Dropbox is protected to an unlimited amount of versions for 6 months. So if you're working on a file or a folder and making changes, you can roll that folder or any file in that content back for a full 6 months. And that actually gives you quite a bit of a buffer to potentially even eliminate a short-term backup solution, right? We can actually be a backup solution for your own content. But we'll talk about Rewind and what that actually looks like, but just keep that in mind as we go through this. So up at the top, what we've done is we've built an overview section. So a problem that IT managers have run into for a long time, sysadmins, is when you're looking through content in maybe a map network drive on your local server, it's hard to really say what the content is used for. So if I have a projects folder, my project Westworld, if I send people to this folder through a map network drive, all they see are the files, right? And that's okay, but unless they're used to working in that content, they may not know what it's all for or where to start. So we added this overview section at the top here to let you give some guidance to people using that content. So when I go into that same folder, if I dig into projects, go into my project Westward folder, suddenly I've got a full overview section. You can put client information here, homepage, contact information. You can mention people. So anyone that's a part of your team, you can mention here and say, this is a person that's responsible for this type of information in this folder. You can build checklists here. So internally, if Christy and I are working on a big project and we've got multiple files there, we can put a little checklist in here and kind of work through it and check things off as we go through it. So very small task keeping in there, as well as pinning relevant content here to the top. So if there's content that you're going through, think of a project folder where maybe every project folder has a NDA assigned to it, and you put that NDA in the folder. You can actually pin it there. For public content, maybe you have an acceptable use policy for your team or for visitors that come into your office, you can pin that content there. So anything that's important to that folder is easily pinned up at the top. A couple other things here. So at the very top, we actually do all of our indexing ourselves. We don't rely on Finder or Windows Explorer to index your content. What we actually do, referring back to the smart thing from before, is we break all your content up into little chunks. So if you add a gigabit or a gigabyte movie or a large PowerPoint or something like that into Dropbox, we're not going to sync the entire file all at once. We're actually going to slice it up like a pie and take each of those little chunks and sync them individually, so that if you come back later and say, well, I actually need to change this title slide because Jared wasn't here for the presentation and we needed to cut him out, then in that case, you're only syncing that little bit of information back to Dropbox. So what does that mean for remote work? So we're all working from home. We all have different bandwidth. We're not back at the Dropbox office ourselves. We don't have access to that big gigabit pipe. So any content that we're working on is relying on all of our individual bandwidth, right? So any changes that we commit have to go out and sync across all of these disparate networks into all these people working remotely. So the ability to slice content up and only do the delta syncing to deliver content changes really keeps our sync engine much, much, much faster than a lot of the competition out there. And you'll actually see that when using it and you make changes to files, these little check boxes, green circles with the yellow checks, or I'm sorry, the white checks in them, just means your content's in sync, and that happens very rapidly. But because we do that indexing on the back end, we can offer a lot more features around your content, right? So if you want to search for content just by information, so I can search for myself where I'm showing up in any of my content in here. We also offer optical character recognition. So apart from just searching the content in the PDFs, in the doc files, if you took a JPEG of a sign and it had exit on it, you wanted to search for all your exit signs, you can actually do that. And our OCR tool will actually find that information in that file and surface it to you. But think of another scenario where you may be taking pictures of job sites or bridges or homes or locations. We also are doing machine learning on the back end to surface up content by its own context. So what do I mean by that? Think of Google Images. When you go search for a new car and you just want to see what it looks like, you don't need to know the image file name or any of the metadata with it. You're just searching for a new Honda or something like that. So in my example here, I can search for kitten, and all of my pictures of kittens will pop up, regardless of their file name, where they're stored. We're just using that Google image type machine learning on the back end to surface what that content is. So it makes it really easy if you want to go back and search for old jobs, old projects, and look for images or photos that we're taking based on that type of content. So a couple other things here. Over on the left, of course, we're able to pin content that you're using more frequently. We've just introduced the people section, which will surface people that are in your environment that you tend to work with more, and you can click on these people and see what content they've actually added. I don't think my team's worked in it very much lately. Jared, new on my team, he added a sample paper doc. Again, if we have access to that content together, I'll be able to view that content that he's added into Dropbox. All right, so kind of going back to the roots here, when you're looking at content in Dropbox, what we're going to do is we're going to provide contextual information around the file types that are actually being stored in Dropbox. So if you're looking at a doc file, right, what do you typically do with a doc file? Well, you may open it up in a preview engine. You may open it in Word, of course, we've got those available, but you also may send that off for e-signature. Now, we integrate with all the e-signature platforms out there, all the major ones. So Hellosign, of course, our company, but Adobe Sign, DocuSign. When you're sending this for signature from Dropbox, what we'll do is we'll send a copy of it out for signature. You'll go through the signature process on the destination site, and when that signature completes, you'll actually commit that copy back into Dropbox. So in this case, I had an accident info doc that I sent out for signature, and it came back as a completed through Hellosign doc. So the two files will actually live side by side within Dropbox. So a couple other things here. Sending things off for fax, right? Ideally, you want to keep all of your content in Dropbox because bringing people back to the content means you're always working on the most recent version. My old job, all the time, we would run into file versions like Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3, sending things as attachments back and forth through email, trying to figure out who had added. Is my Rev 3 the same as your Rev 3, right? It became a nightmare. So what we do in Dropbox is actually, when you're sharing or sending with these links using your chosen communication platform, we're creating links to the content and bringing people back to the core file. So any changes that committed to a document, everyone will be viewing that same content. You can continue using Rev 1, 2, 3, etc., but it's really not necessary going forward. But think of like non-standard content that you might store in Dropbox. You know, my old role, I worked in building a support center recently, and we were constantly looking through floor layouts, AutoCAD files, and in order to view that content, along with my marketing team for their campaigns that they were pushing out through using Illustrator and Photoshop, we'd have to constantly convert these files to PDFs and send them back and forth for approval. The way Dropbox gets around this, and I really found a lot of ROI in this because I could actually reduce licensing in other areas, was if you're storing the actual content in Dropbox, say you've got a Photoshop file or an Illustrator file, that your marketing or creative team are working on. They don't have to convert it to PDF and potentially lose some of the fonts or formatting. They don't have to convert it to a JPEG, send it as an attachment. What you would do is just mention someone on the file. So if I'm on the creative team, I can just mention like Christy, for example. I can tag her on this file. These comments will actually stick with the file. I can put a note in here. We can do some planning around it. She can give me feedback on the file. But the nice thing about looking at any type of content, I think we support over 280 different file types currently, is you can open these files with Dropbox Preview, and now you're looking at the actual PSD file. And this is probably a terrible example, but this PSD file is actually rendered in Photoshop and shown to you as it would appear to your editor. So we can actually look at this content together. We can communicate on it. We can stay in sync on it. We can actually do contextual annotations, right? So if there was a signature or a header here, I could highlight a certain area and say, you got everything right, but you misspelled the client's name, right? So I can tag her on that. That will pop up in her notifications and then bring her back around so that we can continue working on this. And you can also use this as a checklist too. So if Christy comes in, she can find the issue, update the file, mention me on it, and then we can actually resolve that. Right, so a comment can actually get resolved and fall out of the comment stack as well. But a couple other things here before we kind of transition a little bit away from this. We are servicing the most commonly used applications or extensions for each file. We do offer on the back end additional extensions that you can turn on from the administration side, but there's over 100,000 developers out there working to build integrations with Dropbox. So likely, if you're using an application out there that we haven't mentioned, there's going to be an integration with Dropbox. And we actually have an app integration page that can walk you through different integrations that we have or ones that we would suggest for what you would normally use this for. So let's talk a little bit about sharing, and then we'll walk over to Hellosign and go through that. Just as a time check, Christy, how are we doing? $3:50. I think we've got about 10 minutes left. Okay, so I'm going to do about 5 more minutes here, and then I'll transfer it back over. So let's talk about sharing content, both internally and then outside your environment as well. So again, if we're working on a project file,
we don't. There was a question in the chat too. So Doug was asking, Dropbox is what the Mac app is called?
Mac.
I think the Mac app, Dropbox is the same for Windows and Mac.
Right. Yeah, this experience will be
just responding to that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for both Mac and Windows, and even the Linux GUIs out there, the GNUs, it'll be the same visual experience. Okay, so to kind of finalize sharing and then jump over to Hellosign for a couple minutes, a couple of things you can do with sharing here. So let's say you have a project that you're working on. Again, you don't have access to that server at the office anymore. You're having to figure out how to communicate and get content back and forth between your clients. We have what we're calling file requests. A file request is a way to build a link. So if I transition out to the website, I can actually build a file request to request content from one of my customers. So call it whatever you want, request. You decide where that content's going to land. I can dig back into that project folder. Say we'll go back to Project Westworld to that client index, and that will be that customer's inbox for perpetuity. So anytime that customer wants to send me something, what they're going to do is access this link, and then they can just upload that content for me. The nice thing about this is we offer up to 50 gigabytes of uploads to the web interface through each session. So getting way, way beyond the 50 meg limit that I've been used to on the IT side. 50 gigs is quite a bit of information to receive. But we can make these links password protected. We can set them to expire. A lot of people have added these to their email signature. So if you want to send someone a file, click the link and then you have access to add content to their Dropbox. From the security side, we're not exposing your Dropbox, we're not showing any of your folder structure in your files. It's just a way for them to easily and safely send you content. Now, to transfer content, let's say you've worked with a client on a project, you've got all their information, you worked on all the files here, you're done with it, you put the final project in the folder. How do you get that to them? Well, you can burn it to a disk. Do you put it on an FTP server? Can you compress it and attach it to an email, hoping it won't get blocked by a spam filter? What we do is we actually allow you to send that out with what we're calling Dropbox Transfer. So Dropbox Transfer, let's say I want to send this entire final project to my client, allows me to transfer this content out, and we allow up to 100 gigabytes of content to transfer out with Transfer. What we'll do is we'll take a snapshot of that final project, move it to a secure location in our servers, and then again, send them a secure link to access that content. You can set that link to expire, and you can also password protect that link. The nice thing about it is your team can continue working in your Dropbox folder, but that copy of that project has been taken out, copied, and then delivered to that end customer. Great way for delivering media or large file formats outside your environment without giving anyone access to your existing content. But on the off chance you do want to actually collaborate with someone within your Dropbox, you can collaborate with anyone that has a Dropbox account, whether it's on another team or a free account. All you need to do is share that content out like you would in a personal Dropbox. But a couple of things to consider here. When you're sharing outside of your environment, of course, we have admin controls on the back end that we won't cover in this demo, but you can leverage Dropbox sharing to give other users edit access, view access, or if you just want to give them access to the content, but not all of the content, we do have a way to do that with a shared link. So when you create a shared link, doesn't matter if they have Dropbox or not. Again, it's just going to send them a shared link. You can password protect that, determine who can access that, whether it's an internal only link, a link for anyone outside the organization, or typically we see this when you're sharing content outside the organization. Maybe if you're developing something for someone, you don't want them to download the actual file, so you can protect your IP while also sharing a proof with them without taking a screenshot or attaching it to an email and sending that out. So this Dropbox side demo could go on forever. There's so much to show. There's so many features, but I do want to show the Hellosign integration and what that actually looks like in about 2 minutes, and then I'll transfer it back to the team. So from the Hellosign side of the house, we acquired Hellosign last year, and one thing from the solution side I really liked is they play the same as us. They try to keep the end user interface as simple as possible. The same as us, we do everything encrypted end to end in transit, and everything once is received on the back end is encrypted at rest. So very secure company, but it's also very easy to use. Now, the integration with Dropbox, again, when you open a file here, you can send for signature directly through Hellosign. What that will do is it will open up Hellosign in the web and then just ask you, okay, well, who needs to sign the file? Is it something you need to sign off on? Do you have yourself and others signing off on that content? Or maybe like an NDA or an offer letter, they just need to sign it and return it to you. I won't go through the full signature process, but just to highlight a few things here, we do pull the content in and we ask you who the signers are. So maybe this one's Christy. I'm just going to put gmail.com, even though it's fake, just for sake. So we do allow signer order reassignment. Again, for if you send something to someone for signature and they are like, oh, actually, I need to send that to my boss to reassign, we have signer order and reassignment. So if you have multiple people in here that are signing and you need to flip-flop who signs what, we do offer that as well. But from the high level, really, let me save this out. Let me delete this one, save this one. You're keeping this very simple, and the signature process can be built out as templates so that if you're making offer letters or purchase orders over and over and over, build it as a template, make it easy to use, and again, you can do it multiple times. But from a simplicity sake, you're pulling signature files in, determining who's going to sign what place. So this is for Christy to sign. When she actually receives this, maybe I want to see the date she signed it as well. She'll sign off on this, and then I'll actually be able to follow up on my side. The Dropbox integration around Hellosign, again, is really nice because if I initiate the signature request from Dropbox, once we complete that signature process, it's actually going to drop the completed file back into Dropbox. But if you are using another tool, so maybe you're using DocuSign or Hellosign, we'll still integrate with that. And again, from the Hellosign side, since they were around before Dropbox, you can pull content in from other solutions as well, such as Box and Evernote and other solutions like that. All right, so I did want to show the mobile app, but I don't think we have time for that. The last few things to mention here, we do offer the ability to create Google Doc sheets and slides directly within Dropbox now, and they'll actually follow that same sharing methodology that I just showed. That's kind of a first for a lot of companies out there, who previously had to send people over to G Drive to access and store that content. You can actually now store and collaborate directly on those files within Dropbox. But we do have rich integration with O365 as well. I think a lot of that would be better discussed in a one-on-one demo. So if anyone is interested in actually seeing a more in-depth demo of our integrations, or even of our admin console, what the admin controls look like, we can definitely set that up. We didn't touch on the API integration, but Dropbox does provide a free API into the product. So once you do get content into Dropbox, there's a myriad of scripts and endpoints that you can connect to actually manipulate that content without doing it manually here within the product.